How many people here, by show of hands, you are here and part of the reason why you are where you are now is because you had a teacher who affected the path in your life? Let me see a show of hands. Wow, almost everybody here. You know, that's, I hear sometimes people talking about education. They'll say, you know, we need to run schools more like businesses, but I really think they've got that backwards. I think if we really look at leadership and the lessons, maybe we need to groom leaders to be a little more like teachers. You know, I had that privilege for a lot of years to teach, and I haven't set foot in a classroom in 20 years. And yet, a few weeks ago, I got a call. It came in on my business line, and there was a woman's voice, and she said, is this Mr. Caperton, who taught at Hamilton High School back in 1984? And she had a very heavy dialect. Clearly, she wasn't a native English speaker. And so I said, yes. And she said, oh, Mr. C, I found you. And I thought, who has been looking for me? She said, you will never guess who this is. I said, you are so right. I won't. She said, you were the first teacher I had when I came to the United States. You were the first teacher. I was in your first period class. I was in your reading class. And she said, you had me, you had my younger brother, you had my older sister. And I put all that together, and I remember back in the 80s, we had a lot of kids who were from Southeast Asia. Many of them were refugees from the killing fields of the Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge. And I put that all together, and I said, is this Ta Putavong? And she said, oh, you remember my name? She said, you were my favorite teacher. I said, oh, is that right? Thank you. That's so sweet. She said, I always remember whenever I needed help, she said, you would get down on one knee and you would help me. And I thought that was so kind. I don't remember that at all. But I do remember whenever any of the kids from Vietnam or Cambodia needed help, they had almost no English, so I just got comfortable. That's what I was doing, see. Because I knew it was going to be there a while. But she saw it as a kindness, as personal attention. She saw it as meeting a real emotional need. Here she was in a place where she'd never been before, not even speaking the language, or at least not much of it. And this was a way of somebody saying, I care about you. And she remembered it. 30 years later, she said, you know, I had a big crush on you. And I said, oh, that's sweet. She said, yes. She goes, I looked you up on the internet. I found your website. I saw your picture. You changed a lot. I said, you could have quit any time before that comment and everything would have been fine. But you know, that's when we look at what those people who are supplying our emotional needs, we look at teachers, we look at those people who have led us in a way that they've honored who we are, they've given us kindness, they've given us personal attention. And when I talk to organizations that are saying, hey, like we're really dealing with problems of engagement, and we really want our people to buy in, and we want to empower them to be able to take ownership. And of course, my question is, are you giving them what they need to be able to engage? And I think if we look to sometimes those relationships, all of you raise your hands, say a teacher was important to you, it's because it wasn't about a transaction, was it? No, it was about a relationship. It was about making you believe things about yourself that you didn't until you came under that person's influence. That's powerful. That's leadership. And so when we look at are people fully engaged, we have to ask the question, what are we doing to engage them? And the truth is, we all need things. You know, the New York Labor Relations Board several decades ago did the first employee-employer survey where they asked this simple question of both employers and employees, what do employees want? And of course, the employers came back with their top three, which was they want higher pay. They want job security. They want chances for promotion. That was the top three. And although that was probably in the top 10 of any of the employees' wish list, that wasn't their top three. Their top three, and similar surveys have been done in the decades since, have all borne this out. Number one, you know what number one was? Recognition. The recognition for the job that they do, to somebody to say thanks. The Gallup organization did a survey of a large cross-section of people working in different industries across this country a few years back, and they asked him, how many times in the last 12 months have you been thanked on the job? You know, 65% of them said not one time. Now that's depressing, but I think it's also kind of encouraging because it means sometimes it's the smallest things that we do to address and to meet emotional needs. We all need to be recognized. Number two, they said, well, we want to feel like we belong here. I want to feel like I'm part of something that's bigger than I am. Not just a replaceable cog, but really part of something. And the third thing was, I want to know that somebody cares about me. These are really small things. They're very basic things. We all have them. If we want to lead, if we want to raise people up to believe that they are able to do more than maybe they did themselves, we have got to supply emotional needs. And it all comes from sometimes the smallest things. When, here it is, it's summertime right now, and a lot of us are outside doing our yard work, and I'm one of these guys. I grew up learning how to cut the grass and do all the things from my dad. And so I like to get out there and do it my way. I have my way of doing it. And I've looked around the neighborhood, other men who do it. When it gets warm enough, what do? They get out and they cut their grass, but they strip their shirts off. And there are two types of men who do this. Men who are proud of their bodies and men who frankly really shouldn't. It's not a mutually exclusive group, because here's the thing. There is a big difference between men and women. I was standing in a grocery store line the other day, and I was looking at these women's magazines. And I noticed something about the magazines. They all were laden with stories and articles inside telling them about things to make them feel more self-conscious about their bodies, right? Things like, do you have pit pudge? What to do about muffin top? What about cankles? These are things. And women are, yeah, I think I have. I didn't even know what that was. Now I got to worry about it. Men, we're just not affected by that because culturally we haven't had that pressure put on us. We are all kind of happy with what we see. I don't care. A man can look like a reflection of a garden gnome in a car window. It doesn't matter. They will step out of a shower in front of a full-length mirror and go, not bad. Right? That's just how we're made. We're just not worried. But I have a friend of mine who, when he goes out, he takes his shirt off and he cuts the grass, and he looks great. Nobody complains because everything's in the right place. So I was over there one day, and I had to comment. I said, boy, you look great. I don't want this to be weird or anything, but you look fantastic. How do you do that? And now, he's from the South, and I love to hear all this variety of accents and dialects as I travel around the country. And everything he says, it sounds real nice. It does. He could say, why don't y'all get off my lawn? You go, thank you. I will. But he said, Dave, all I do is, I just maintain this after I worked out a lot. He goes, I just go down to the gym 3 times a week. He goes, in fact, I could take you down there with me. I could show you 6 basic exercises that'll work every major muscle group in your body. He said, why, in 24 workout hours, you can have a body you'd be proud of. And I thought, 24 hours? I'm going to be buff by the weekend. This is great. Then I learned that workout hours are a little like dog years or days on Jupiter. It's not the same measurement of time. It's 1 hour each day, 3 days each week for 8 weeks. That's how long it takes to see a result. But I went, and we got down there, and I said, okay, what are we going to do first? He said, we're going to start working on the large muscles of the lower body. So we're going to start with some squats. And he put a weight on my shoulder. He goes, okay, now squat way down. And I did. And he goes, now come back up. And, it hurt, okay? It did. It hurt a lot. But I got finally up to a standing position. I was proud of myself. I said, I did it. He said, well, don't get too excited, Dave. That's just one. We're going to do 9 more of those in our first set. And then we're going to do 2 other sets of that, and then we're going to do 5 other exercises, do 3 sets each. And I did that math right in my head, and I said, no, we ain't. That is not happening today or any other day, for that matter. But I did. I struggled through maybe 7. I think 7 of them is what I got to. And by the time I got to 4, I started making noises, awful noises, just guttural sounds, veins popping out of my neck, sweat stinging my eyes. It hurt. Everything below my waist was just in agony. And finally, huffing and puffing, I stopped about 7 in. I said, what do I get out of this exercise? He said, Dave, you do this exercise for the next 8 weeks, man, you'll have you a butt that'll crack walnuts. I said, that's what we're working toward? I put the weight down. I said, I don't want one. I said, that's just not a skill I see myself using, not even as a party trick, really. Do you think? Really? No. But my question is this. If I had stuck with it, would I see a result? Yeah. Because we know that your body doesn't have the choice to respond as it wants to. It must. You put resistance on muscles, they have to get stronger. That's the way it works, right? There are things that are processes. But very often we overlook it's the small things. I went for that one workout and I stopped. It made no difference except I was stoved up for 2 days. That was it. So if I want to really make a change, if you want to make a change in your organization, if you want to make a change in your leadership, it's not the big things you do once in a while. It's the small things you do all the time. It's granular change. It's the ability to say, I'm going to practice something that I can sustain that's small. And sometimes it's simple as a thank you. Every single day that I make sure that I'm expressing gratitude to the people in the organization and who I lead who bring value to what they do. That not a 24-hour period goes by that I don't do that. You know, my dad was he was a sales manager and he traveled a lot. So when I was getting close to the age where I was going to learn to drive myself, we were in traffic and there was a big traffic backup, and he turned to me and he said, I'm going to show you how to solve a traffic jam. And I thought he was joking. I was waiting for the punchline. Yeah. And he was serious. And he said, what you need to do is you need to stay off the brake and make room. That's all you got to do. And where he backed off, people cut in. Where he was making space, he just backed off more. The people behind him were unhappy. They started honking their horns and flashing their lights. My dad didn't ever bow to peer pressure. He just serenely went about what he was doing. And pretty soon the traffic picked up, the speed picked up, and we were back up to speed. And he said, there, see? And I said, well, how do I know that wouldn't happen anyway? And I always wondered about that. And then about a year ago, I pick up the Wall Street Journal, and there's an article that has this headline. Study shows one motorist can solve a traffic backup using exactly the methods that my dad talked about. Backing off, making room, and allowing other people to cut in. And I thought, well, if that's true, then why don't we all do that to solve a problem that affects a lot of people? And I think it really comes down to 2 very simple things. It requires 2 attitudes. And those 2 attitudes are things that seem a little counterintuitive to some of us, because the first one is you have to be willing to not get any credit. Nobody, after the traffic eased up, looked at my dad and said, you, sir, are a problem solver. Right? Nobody did that. In fact, many of them were still angry. What did you back off and let them in for? The other thing is you have to not worry about who sometimes is going to get the benefit and whether or not they deserve it. If there's a better example of a leadership mentality, I don't know what it is. Less of the credit, more of the criticism, and not worrying about who gets the benefit because you're focused only on solving the problem. We all have the ability to change the world. I can change the world around me. Not because I have some great plan or some huge initiative or great wise insight that has occurred to nobody else, but because I have the ability to make small choices all the time, to ask one single question. What can I do? As leaders, what can you do? As people providing service for customers, what can I do? And if I can meet emotional needs, as well as all the other things that I'm there to supply, I can change the world. One person asking one question equals change. A whole lot of people asking that same question creates culture.